Okay, we're gonna kick this off right on time because I like being on time, which means I'm a minute early. I'm Dr. Melissa Stevens. I'm Director of Student Retention and Success here in the College of Sciences and Humanities. This is my 4-month anniversary of being on the job, so I'm very excited to be here. I recently moved back here from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I've been a Michigander for 15 years where I taught at Western Michigan University, but I've always been a Cardinal, so I'm really excited to be back here. I did my undergrad as a poli-sci major, journalism minor, so I spent a lot of time in this building. So it's very surreal to have an office here now because I feel like I was just a student. Obviously, I'm not. So thanks for being here, and we're going to have Dr. Reichert give a little welcome. She is the director of the Legal Studies program here and the Department of Political Science, and she too did her undergrad at Ball State.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Stevens. So I was a first-generation college student and first-generation law school student. I had never met a lawyer before I went to college, and I met one whole lawyer my 4 years at Ball State. So all I knew was what I saw in the movies and on TV, but I'm a very proud graduate of Ball State and also IU McKinney. And the best advice I can give you as you start to explore and think about law school is, first of all, we're here for you. We're all here for you, whether we're the Department of Political Science, Criminal Justice, English, History, pre-law and legal studies. We're here, we're resources, we're happy to answer any questions you have. But what I wanted to just share is have a passion about why you're going to law school. Know what your answer to the question why is. I definitely had an idea of why I wanted to go to law school, and that was, I'm not ashamed to say, to pursue justice. I mean, I felt like I wanted to change the world, and I felt like law school and being a lawyer was the way to do it, and that would give me the tools I needed to make the world a better place. And I ended up, my first job out of law school was as a prosecutor handling domestic violence and child abuse cases. And so I know I made an impact with my law degree. Now, your passion may be the tax code or immigration law or family law, but I encourage you to have a reason, know why you're there. Not just, well, I want to drive a Lexus someday. Lots of jobs, can get you that. But law school will be challenging. And what you need in those challenging moments, whether it's studying for finals, writing an appellate brief, studying for the bar exam, what you need is a fire, a passion, a reason why you're there. That will get you through the hard times and the narrow places. So enjoy this presentation. I know you will, and remember, we're all here to answer any questions and to help you with this process. And thank you again to IU McKinney for hosting or being a part of this. So.
Thank you, Dr. Reichert. Thank you very much for sharing that. The one thing I'll tell you is, as a Ball State student, you can get to know your professors if you haven't already. It's not too late. You do need to get to know a couple because you're going to need reference letters, and they can be great assets and advocates for you. So I'm excited to have you all here today. I'd like to thank our Dean, Maureen McCarthy, who helped fund this event, and to my boss, Dr. Pat Collier, who helped support making this happen. And then we've also had help from Megan Neal and J.B. Bilbrey on the communication staff here in the Dean's office. So as I get ready to introduce my new friend, Tim Luchek, I am pretty excited to tell you about a new opportunity. And what is going to start happening is, as of this fall, the IU McKinney School of Law will be awarding to Ball State students or Ball State alumni a Ball State Law Scholar Award, which will pay for approximately 50% of the legal tuition there at McKinney School. So that's a really new opportunity here. There's a couple other colleges in Indiana who had it, and now we've got this opportunity for you as well. So stay tuned for more information about that as you pursue law school and if you choose to go to McKinney. So I'd like to introduce Tim. He joined the IU McKinney School of Law in August of 2021 as the Assistant Director of Student Recruitment. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Public Relations from the University of Southern Indiana. And after graduating there, he moved to Florida to work at Disney. After a semester there, he realized maybe he wants to do something different, and he started to work in higher education as an admissions counselor for just over 3 years at the Wilkes Honors College at Florida Atlantic University in Jupiter, Florida. While at FAU, Tim earned his master's degree in higher education, leadership, and continues to work in admissions in higher ed. Since August of 22, he's been serving as the interim assistant dean for enrollment management at IU McKinney School, and he's excited to work with students as they pursue their careers in the legal field. So I'm going to switch this over, hopefully seamlessly, maybe not, to his presentation. And I'll turn it over to you. Maybe.
Perfect.
Good.
Maybe. Excellent.
Voila.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm Tim. And thank you so much for letting me talk to you all for a little bit. I'm just going to get this out of the way. Anyone familiar with pickleball? Yeah. I shouldn't mention, but it was with 50 and 60-year-olds. So it was with my parents, but it's fractured. So sorry I can't shake anyone's hands, but that's why. So without further ado, I want to tell you all a little bit about IU McKinney. I know that it's probably a total mix of students here, maybe first years, maybe you're already in the application process, maybe you've already been admitted. So I want to make sure I address as many of those kinds of questions that you have, because it is never too early to start preparing your application for law school and just to start looking at law school as an option. And so that is really the information I want to start providing with you today. So the agenda I have is I really want to go a little bit into IU McKinney, since I'm representing them, and I really want to make sure that you all are aware of this fantastic law school that is literally only an hour drive away. Then we'll go through kind of what is involved in an application, and finally I want to make sure you know what are those next steps that you can be doing even as a first year, second year, third year in your undergrad. So to begin, Indiana University is unique in that it has two completely separate law schools. There's the one in Bloomington, but then there's the one that is located right downtown in Indianapolis, IU McKinney, which is one I'm representing. And so there are really three parts or three factors I really think make IU McKinney unique that I want to just go through. And the first is going to be this flexibility that we have with our program. Now, in order to earn a JD degree, which is the degree you need in order to take the bar and become a practicing attorney, it is going to be 90 credit hours. And the nice thing is that at IU McKinney, we have two separate programs in order for you to earn that JD. The full-time program, which can be done in 3 years, or our part-time hybrid program, which can be done in 4 years. And so up here, you're going to see a little bit of how it's broken down. So during that first year, you can expect as a full-time student that classes typically going to be Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5 is when you want to anticipate being on campus, almost like a job in a way. In our class sizes, roughly 90 to 100 students in a class. And then after that first year, it does shrink down. Now, the part-time program, the hybrid program, that is going to take place Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 9 o'clock in the evenings. But students only have to be on campus Monday and Thursdays for classes. So this creates a little bit more flexibility in when you take your classes. And so if you're someone who maybe wants to work while doing law school, this is a great opportunity, because the thing is, you don't have to follow that general path of going right from undergrad into law school. You can always come back after a year or or you can just continue on, like many students do, of undergrad right into law school. So that's kind of how our flexibility is. And we're the only law school that offers, in Indiana, that offers a part-time program. Now, I break down that first year because it is very set in stone. That's how the classes are going to be set up. You don't really have a lot of choice because we want to make sure that you have the foundation first. Then after that is when you get to personalize your law experience. And so we have many different ways to help personalize your law school experience, and some of them are listed up here with our graduate certificates. I like to think of these as kind of like a major, in the sense of maybe you have a certain specialization that you're interested in. So for example, health law or criminal law. And you can basically earn a graduate certificate taking classes that go along with that field. Now, graduate certificates are not required. You do not need to have those. So if you're interested in family law, you notice that that's not up there. That's okay. You can still practice family law after earning a JD from IU McKinney. There are courses available so that you can kind of have a little bit of that background knowledge in that field. Now, we also have dual degrees. So dual degrees, these are an opportunity for you to earn your JD and another degree. And this is a partnership we have with us located right on the IUPUI campus. So a lot of the popular ones are going to be that Master of Business Administration, the Masters of Public Health, Health Administration. So if you're wanting to have that double degree, you are able to do that. And how it works is that it's just going to be an additional year because some of your classes for, let's say, the MBA will count towards your JD and vice versa. So does lengthen the time you're in your JD, but shrinks the amount of time you would be doing the 2 degrees separately. Now, there are many other ways to help personalize your law school experience so that you can get a lot more of the hands-on learning experiences. And that's what this whole circle here is. Now, I encourage you, you're going to have the opportunity to talk to some alumni and some current students. So be sure to ask about some of these, but just a real brief so you understand some of these unique things for law school. We have law reviews. Those are student-run journals so that you can, if you're really interested in the writing aspect of law, you'd be able to take advantage of that. Moot court, maybe you more enjoy being in the courtroom. This is going to be that court simulation. We also have clinics. Now, clinics are an opportunity where you work under a professor's license and actually go through the process of representing a client in various different fields. So we have one in appellate court. We have one in re-entry. There's several criminal law clinics, and then we even have one with Butler University in their Title IX office. So a lot of different areas. We also have over 100 different externships, and I'm going to come back to that one because that's just going to go into our location, but as well as our pro bono opportunities. So maybe you want to give back to the community. Those pro bono opportunities are ways that you can give back and practice your skills in law. And finally, over 30 student organizations, so you can get involved in certain areas of law. Now, I mentioned that externships because when I say we're downtown Indianapolis, we are literally right downtown Indianapolis. Like, we're a couple blocks away from the Indiana State House. So if you've never been on the IUPUI campus, definitely come check us out. But we are very close to a lot of different companies, organizations, nonprofit organizations. And so our law school going to be right up there in the top, and then just a couple blocks away is going to be NCAA headquarters, or you got all these corporations, Salesforce Tower. So at each of these stars, they're also on this map, is representing a lawyer. So there are many opportunities for you to get that hands-on experience of doing internships. Now, this is going to break down a little bit of a class profile. We are looking to actually increase. So we anticipate this next incoming class to be about 250 students. So that's what you can anticipate. But what I really want to draw your attention to is actually going to be this median part here. Because when you are applying for law school, in order to understand your best chances of admittance, you want to be looking at those medians. Now, I'm going to talk more about the application because it is not just about your GPA. It's not just about the LSAT, but they do play a significant role because they are a good indicator to determine your success in law school. And so 154 is going to be that median for an LSAT, and then a 3.58 GPA. But if you have a little bit lower for those, that's okay. We're going to talk ways to strengthen your application here in just a moment. Now, I understand that law school is expensive, but I want to make sure that you know that we have many ways to help finance this legal education for you. So, and that is going to be through merit-based scholarships. So if you have that 154 and 3.5 or higher, you very well could be looking at merit-based scholarships. We also have donor-funded scholarships. These are through an application so that you can apply for more funding. If you are not a resident of Indiana, but maybe you're a resident of one of the states surrounding Indiana, we do have non-resident discounts that do bring that out-of-state tuition costs down. And then we also have this very unique opportunity with the Indiana Supreme Court called ICLEO, and I'm actually I definitely will want one of our students to talk more about that because it is a great experience and she was actually a part of this. But it does come with a scholarship. And Melissa mentioned a very special award that just started here at Ball State, and that is going to be the Law Scholar Award. So as mentioned, this is an award that 2 Ball State students will be selected by committee here at Ball State to receive a half tuition scholarship, plus opportunities to be part of exclusive events so you can network with different professionals in the field in Indianapolis. And so these are some of the schools that are part of that. Now, I want to go through a little bit of the application checklist and letting you know that some of these things you can actually be doing now, and that actually is going to be the first thing. Number 1, when it comes to this application checklist, is creating an account with lsac.org. So is there anyone who's not familiar with LSAC? Okay, that's all right, because that's why you're here. So this is perfect. What I encourage everyone to do is to check out lsac.org. That stands for the Law School Admissions Council. This is where every part of the application process takes place in order to apply to law school. So once you make your account, you're able to go through the rest of these steps. You'll be able to get a CAS report. A CAS report, Credential Assembly Service. This is basically the report that collects your transcripts, your letters of recommendation, your actual application, and sends it all to the law schools that you apply to. So you'll have that. Now, I mentioned a little bit about the LSAT, and so because it is still an important part of the application, I do want to briefly just go over it. The LSAT, the Law School Admissions Test, it is there to assess skills such as reading comprehension, analytical reasoning, logical reasoning, and it is a requirement that we have with, I guess it's all listed up here, 4 sections, 35 minutes each. There's a writing section. It is a rigorous test. I do want to warn you of that. So we do encourage students to take 3-4 months to study for this test. So really devote some time to it. It is offered 9 times a year, and we do accept the highest score that you get. So it's okay to take it more than once. And then scores are usually released 3 weeks after that test. When it comes to preparation, there are many ways to help prepare you for this test. One is a free resource called Khan Academy. There is actual free resources available on LSAC in order for you to prepare for this test. But I have a lot of other resources that you can check out as well. Kaplan, PowerScore. Some of these do have some free resources that you can take advantage of. And now I do want to also just briefly mention that we will also accept the GRE if you are maybe already taking a GRE for another program. This has been the first year that we are accepting the GRE, so you are able to do that as well. But the law school admissions test, we are going to look at that more highly. So that covers that. Transcripts. You just need to make sure you submit those transcripts. Then we get into the letters of recommendation and personal statement. Now, for that personal statement, what are we really wanting to know from you? This is actually stuff that you can do as early as your first year of law school. And this is asking that question of, why do you want to go to law school? Not for the luxury cars, as mentioned, but we really want to understand a little bit of your background and what led you to this interest in going into law. Why do you want to earn a JD? And what do you plan to do with that JD? Now, you don't have to have these definitively figured out. That's okay. We just want to know that there's a true reason that you want to go into this field. We do want to keep these 2 pages or less, and be sure to reread your work, because when it comes to law school, there is a bit of writing that is involved. And so we want to make sure that you are a strong writer. As for letters of recommendation, again, start making those relationships with your professors, your faculty, your advisors, because we do require that you have 2 letters of recommendation, but we will accept 3. And generally, we would like to have at least one of those letters be from someone in the academic field, so whether it be that professor or academic advisor. And then the other one could be maybe an employer or something along those lines. Maybe it's a employer for an internship you have. And then the last couple things, we have the resume and the optional statements. So maybe you have a lower GPA, maybe you have that lower LSAT. You are able to write an addendum to kind of explain to the committee about, why maybe it was a little lower. Maybe there were certain circumstances in your life that kind of affected your GPA for a time, or affected your ability to do well on the LSAT for a particular test. You're able to do those. And finally, I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the next steps. So when it comes to these next steps, there are many ways for you to just start engaging and being a strong applicant now. And so the first ways to engage, on that website, lsac.org, is going to list many different events for you to attend, so you can start learning about the different law schools, because we acknowledge that maybe IU McKinney isn't the best place for everyone, but I hope it is. But I want to make sure that you all know the many different opportunities that are out there. If you are looking to stay in Indiana and want to have that hands-on experience, this is definitely a place to consider, though. So I definitely want to make sure that you all are aware of that. And the best way to determine if a law school is going to be the best place for you, go check them out. For us, we host information sessions, and we definitely encourage students to come for tours. So those are something that you can absolutely take advantage of. For those of you that are not a senior right now, we do have a Summer Law and Leadership Academy. And so this is a 1-week virtual experience where you get to actually interact with some law professors. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. You can find more information about it on our website. And so one of the last pages here, this is going to be a little bit of that timeline to law school. Just letting you, again, see that you can start even as a first-year student preparing for law school. So who are the freshmen and first-year students? Okay, quite a few. Good. So right now, my advice to you, prioritize that GPA. Meet with your pre-law advisor and join some pre-law organizations, or take advantage of things like this where you are learning more about law school, and explore career options. The thing is, you do not need to be a political science major in order to go into law school. You don't have to have that pre-law major in order to go into law school. It could be any major. So find a major that you enjoy. Because then we go into, who are the sophomores? All right, perfect. We go into that sophomore year, and that's where you start, probably picking out that major. Continue to maintain that GPA, 3.5, right around there, and develop relationships with your faculty so that you are starting to develop those letters of recommendation for the future. And then become familiar with LSAC so you can start researching the law schools. And then it's also time to maybe start considering internships. Now, I want you to know that we do not require you to have a law internship in order to get into law school. But if you're just really, I don't know how I feel about this law school thing or law in general, definitely try to seek out maybe an internship or a shadowing experience so that you can kind of see, is this something that I'm actually interested in? Now, where's the juniors? All right, perfect. This is the time to start looking at LSAC law school forums, fairs, so you can, again, start talking to different law schools, limiting your list down to the places that you plan to apply for coming up here. Now, for all of you, if you are planning to apply to law school right after you graduate, the application opens on September 1st. And so, what I encourage is that you start planning out when you're going to take that LSAT so that you are able to apply sooner rather than later. Because my recommendation, try to get those applications again if needed. So you can, again, have that best chance of admittance. Also, while as a junior, you want to continue to be involved, maintain that GPA, and then identify who you want as your recommenders. And finally, seniors, any seniors here? Have you all submitted your law school applications? Yeah? All right, perfect, because that's where you should be right now. The application does close on May 15th for IU McKinney specifically. So this is crunch time for all of you. But now, hopefully you have been getting your decisions of the different law schools that you've applied to and are making that determination of where you want to attend. So what I also recommend is keep communicating with the admissions office. So reach out to myself and any of the others in the McKinney office, admissions office, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. Come to admitted student visits. So those are things I definitely recommend at this point. And so with that kind of concludes what to do next, and that's just contact us. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at any point. So you have myself and then Nicole Burtz, who is the Assistant Director of Student Recruitment here at McKinney. And with that, I'm going to keep that open so you have our contact information, but I just blew through a lot there. So I want to take a moment to see if there are any questions. Yes?
So I'm a freshman currently, and I'm on track for a 3-year graduation. I was wondering how that would work. I guess timing-wise, should I be looking for my next year for me taking the test, like the LSAT and everything?
You got it. Then you're just moving it up of when you need to start planning. Usually you want to just plan on taking that LSAT the summer before you start your final year of undergrad. Yep. Because it's during your final year of undergrad. If you plan to go right into law school after, that's when you're applying. Any other questions? Yes?
How much does the LSAT usually cost?
The LSAT for right now is $215.
Okay.
Yes, and so in order to register, it's on the LSAC website.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why we really say, study, so you don't have to take it more than once. But if you take it twice, that's okay. Any other questions? Oh, that's it. Okay. They're saving it all for our currency. Yeah, exactly, for the panel.
Can we give Tim a big round of applause? I will tell you that when I was taking the GRE, that was paid for by birthday money, which wasn't very glamorous, but it at least covered the. That's a sign when you're a grown up, when you're using birthday money to pay for a graduate exam. So I appreciate Tim very much, and let me find where my other moment. And I'm going to have Professor Rochlow come up here and then invite our panelists to come up here as well as we transition over. And I'm going to move this out of the way.
Panelists, if you'd like to come up. Hi, everybody. I'm Brandy Rochlow, and I'm an assistant teaching professor in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology. I see lots of familiar faces and lots of new ones. I have a law degree as well, and I primarily teach about criminal law and criminal court. So if you end up in my classroom, that's probably what we're there for. I do want to mention briefly that Ball State University, through the Division of Lifetime Learning, is offering a low-fee LSAT preparation class of about 18 credit hours with a professor. So that may be an option to think about. That's right here through Ball State for you.
So we have our 4 panelists, and they will, and Professor Rochlow is going to have them introduce themselves, but I really am excited to have you. This is actually Women's Week here on Ball State's campus, so we have an all-female panel, so I'm like, you go girls. And I am the mom of 2 boys, so I like sons too. So got our 4 women here, they're ready to go. Professor Rochlow, and they have a series of questions they're going to just ask you all, bounce it around, and then at the end there'll be time for Q&A with all of them. And I think that'll do it. So thanks for helping us.
Hi, everybody. I would ask that you can start maybe by telling us your name, your undergraduate major, and your favorite BSU professor or maybe memory here on campus. If we want to maybe start with Rebecca on the end.
Yeah, so my name is Rebecca Porter. I graduated from Ball State in December of 2021. I was a journalism major and I had a concentration in magazine. One of my favorite things I did here at Ball State was write for Ball Bearings, the magazine on campus, and I was the editor-in-chief my senior year. And then it's really hard for me to pick a favorite professor. I feel like mean almost picking and choosing, but if I had to choose, I would say Dr. Adam Cuban was probably my favorite. He taught a couple of journalism classes as well as honor courses. So, yeah.
My name's Olivia Vieira. I was a legal studies major here with a concentration in business law. I graduated in May of 2021. I was part of Greek Live, the Honors College, worked part-time at the Rec Center, and then for my favorite professor, I feel like they all invested in me as a student and individual in their own way, so picking just one would be hard, but definitely Professor Maple or Professor Gideon definitely helped me through that law school, to get to law school.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Brown. I graduated in May of 1994, at the height of grunge. It was a fabulous time to be at Ball State University. I studied history and political science. I picked up a minor in philosophy because somebody told me that taking a logic class would help prepare me for the LSAT. Not sure that that was true, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. And then it was really easy to get a minor in philosophy. Favorite professor in the history department was definitely Dr. Tony Edmonds. And here in the poli-sci department, probably Dan Reagan. So I got a lot of memories, a lot of good times at Ball State. Happy to dive in more as we go.
My name is Audrey Racine. I graduated from Ball State in December of 2012, majored in legal studies, and not because he's in the room, but Professor Gideon was one of my favorite professors here. Just want to put that out there.
Perfect. I guess we've already started talking about the why a little bit. So could you all share your, what drew you to a career as an attorney, or kind of your why for going to law school? And maybe we can start on this side this time with you.
Why? So I did not take the traditional path to law school, so I actually got a job with the Indiana Attorney General's office right after I graduated from Ball State. And I was working with a lot of attorneys. And so after a couple years, I decided, okay, maybe it's time that I need to, move forward and bite the bullet and apply to law school. So that's what I did. Ultimately, my goal was to help people and to give people that either don't have a voice that they don't know how to use, or one that maybe they just don't know what their rights are. And so ultimately it was help people bring their voice to the table, and that's kind of what I did.
Yeah, I'd say I had similar thoughts. I definitely wanted to help people. I think at the time I was graduating and trying to decide between going to law school or continuing in a graduate program in history, and I felt like studying history would be great, and teaching was sort of the obvious next step. I felt like law school gave me just broader opportunity as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do exactly. So I had a very strong sense of justice and helping people, and the inherent sort of leadership that comes with, and responsibility that comes with being a lawyer. I feel like I had that like deep in my bones early on, but what exactly I wanted to do and how that was going to manifest for me, I was all over the place. But that allowed me to at least get to law school and sort those things out kind of as I was there.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to help people with my future career. And growing up, I just had kind of different experience with attorneys. So like, for example, my dad was here undocumented, so we had an attorney help us with that. And my mom was an addict, so we had attorneys with that. And so just different personal life experience, I saw how an attorney can help guide somebody through one of their hardest parts of their lives. And I wanted to be that for someone else. So that's kind of what led me into law school. And then also just learning the amount of things you can do with a law degree is like, there's a whole world out there that you can have opened up to you with the JD. So that's kind of what's keeping me going too.
Sure. Yeah, as I mentioned, I wrote for the magazine when I was here at Ball State, and I sort of fell into a niche of writing about health and environmental law and policy. So learning about these things as I was researching for these stories really kind of set me on fire and made me really passionate about the topics that I was studying for the pieces I was writing. And so that's when I first started thinking about law school, and I was a little late to the game. It was like my end of my sophomore year, early into my junior year, that I decided to start pursuing it. So it's not too late if you haven't started, or you're a junior or even a senior. But yeah, kind of to echo what everyone else says, I just wanted to be able to make a difference and help people.
That's wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. Another question that I know I get a lot as someone who helps students with law school applications is, what kind of organizations, clubs, jobs should I do that'll help me be a better candidate or do better in law school? So would you all be willing to share your thoughts and some maybe specific things that you did to help prepare you as a law school candidate? Rebecca, let's start back with you.
Yeah, I would say that anything that you're interested in and passionate about is something that is going to be good to get involved with. For me, that was the magazine, and I also had an on-campus job as a secretary at the Department of Journalism office. That was really great because it helped connect me with a lot of professors and people in administration at Ball State. So it really helped me out with those letters of recommendation, like Tim mentioned, and just connecting me to people in the Ball State community and abroad. But I think it's important to do things that you're truly interested in, because that's going to reflect when you're filling out your applications and making your resumes.
Yeah, so I majored in legal studies, and that was definitely the most helpful thing I think I could do as a Ball State student, just because you learn the legal jargon, you learn how to write an appellate brief. So like, we're doing that right now in writing, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. I've done this before. So that was super helpful. But then besides that, I was a part of like Greek Life and College Mentors for Kids, and those were just things that I was passionate about and interested about. And so it kind of taught me those transferable skills of communication, time management, planning ahead. And so I think those are all just like make you a strong candidate too. And it helps you connect with attorneys, being able to sit there and say like, oh yeah, I've done this club. And so it's like you can bond over those interests.
Yeah, I would say as an employer now, I have no time for resume building. I am very much interested in what are you excited about? Why did you do the things that you did? And what drew you to those things? When I was on campus, I participated in a group that I'm not sure is around anymore, but it was called Student Leadership Development Board, and it was just a really focused group on lots of areas of leadership potential and opportunities. I did student government. I had a couple of just amazing internships, both in Indianapolis and in Washington, D.C. There were just really great networking opportunities, gave me a lot of access to a network of people that I wouldn't have had reason to work with before. I did some volunteer work in the Muncie community on literacy that was really valuable. The honors program here was just absolutely phenomenal. My honors thesis gave me just access to a professor's time and attention. Writing a 30-page paper is nothing I would ever have signed up for if it wasn't required of me to have done that. But oh my goodness, looking back on it now, what a valuable experience to have time and attention from this professor. This paper was selected and we presented it at a conference in Chicago, and he invited me to go with him to do this. Those are kinds of things that happen at Ball State that were just so incredibly valuable that I'm not sure that they would have happened necessarily at another school. So take advantage of those opportunities. What drew me to Ball State absolutely was it's a teaching school first. And the professors are in the classroom and they want to have a relationship with you. And I know they probably say that all the time, but I think they mean it. That definitely was my experience. And so take advantage of those opportunities.
So when I was on campus, I think one of the biggest things that helped me to maybe explore that legal field more was my internship with Delaware County court system. So I did an internship, took advantage of that. The judge at the time allowed me to go around to all the departments. So I got to talk to the prosecutor's office. I got to talk to the public defenders. I got to go to juvenile court and I got to see what that looked like. So I would highly encourage you guys to do an internship in something that's related to maybe, something that you're interested into. And like these ladies said before, something that you're passionate about, get involved with it. Doing volunteer work. One of the other things that I think, for me, I was working just a side job, not anything related. I was in retail just to get me through college, and but I still, through the legal studies program, had this small group of people that we were all kind of in the same classes and same kind of area, and we started building just our own little group of people, and passing ideas back and forth with each other. So I think getting involved, community involvement, and internships is huge to get that experience.
Thank you all. The next kind of question that there's always a lot of interest in is what major should I pick? And we have a few different majors up here, so would you all be willing to share the ways that your majors helped you be ready for law school? And can we start back here?
So at the time when I was in high school, I was researching colleges in Indiana that were ABA accredited. At the time, Ball State was the only ABA accredited legal studies program. So I knew I wanted to do law eventually. I wanted to get into legal studies, pre-law. And so I decided to do Ball State because they were the only ABA accredited school at the time. And not to mention it wasn't far from home. I could, commute back and forth. I didn't live on campus for the first 2 years, and then I moved to campus my junior-ish year. And then I actually graduated a semester early, so I did it in 3.5 years because I was just ready to move forward. But I would say legal studies for me did it. And I think echoing when I went to law school and we had to do appellate briefs, or we were doing IRAC, or we were doing, I'm like, I know this stuff. You get familiar with it, and you're more comfortable that first year of law school. Because trust me, the nerves, the stress, it's high. And so I think finding, legal studies to be really helpful in giving that foundation. So I was a big, encourager of legal studies.
I studied history and political science. So history was the value for me, I guess the direct corollary was it's a lot of reading and a lot of writing. Law school is a lot of reading and a lot of writing. So that was helpful. Political science, probably more just government and politics and just sort of structure. That was helpful. I don't think either of those majors were necessary to go to law school. To echo what Tim said, I talk to students all the time who are interested in law school. Literally study anything you want if you want to go to law school. Clients have a lot of different needs and a lot of different specializations, and no matter what you study in your undergrad, it probably will eventually have some application to your eventual legal career. So if you are super into science, awesome. Maybe you should be thinking about intellectual property, which we never seem to have enough of. There's lots of different ways to get at law school. There's a lot of different areas of practice. There's a lot of different clients to represent, big and small, lots of different kinds of legal needs. So I think the actual major, if you like to read and write, law school is where it's at, but literally could probably study anything. I'm going to put in like a tiny plug. I know we're here about law school and about McKinney, but I'm going to put in not so little plug for other legal careers beyond practicing law. We are, in our practice, heavily reliant on paralegal talent. They are a phenomenal asset to our firm, and they make really good money. So I just like to sort of, if there's any concern about paralegals don't make very much, well, maybe I should talk to the right law firms, because that's not entirely true. There's also a lot of opportunity in these other kind of legal technology tracks that has nothing to do with practicing law. The legal industry operates in a very archaic way. There's a lot of opportunity to do lots of neat and interesting things that are really innovative for the legal industry that you don't actually need to have a JD for. So if you go to law school and you're like, I'm not sure about this and I'm not sure about practicing law, don't give up on the legal industry as a whole. Or if you think, sorry, Tim, law school is not really your thing and you still want to be around the legal industry, there's a lot of ways in which to provide value beyond the day-to-day practicing law.
Yeah, can I just chime in really quickly? So I did the hybrid model at IU McKinney. So I worked full-time and I went to law school at night. And I went to school with doctors, nurses, real estate agents, police officers, dental hygienists, you name it, they were there. So I just wanted to chime in that you don't have to necessarily take that normal traditional route to get and to be successful in law school. And then just piggyback on the paralegals. Oh my goodness. So absolutely, I think if you don't necessarily think you want to practice law, but you want to use your JD for other things. I did not practice right away after I graduated from IU McKinney. I went into policy and into lobbying, and so I was at the State House for a little while drafting legislation, and I didn't necessarily have to have a law degree to do that, but a JD was preferred. And a lot of jobs now, it's JD preferred. Doesn't mean it's required, but I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just to hype up the legal studies major a little bit more. I think they also help with the legal research part of law school. So I don't know if you guys have used LexisNexis yet in Professor Maple's class, but that's a good foundation to use for Westlaw and the more advanced legal researching. So that was super helpful with that also. And then just going off of the paralegal and the non-traditional things that they've touched on, I took a gap year in between my undergrad and my law school, and I worked at a small firm in my hometown. And the amount of times I would interact with a paralegal over an attorney to learn those basic drafting skills was more than I can say. Those paralegals were my go-to. So definitely don't rule out being a paralegal if you're not 100% sure on being an attorney. And then don't be afraid to take a gap year and explore and truly make sure that law school is what you want to do, because it is an investment. So it is something you want to go in and be 100% sure about, I would say.
Just to echo kind of what everyone else has said about there not being one path that is the correct path to get to law school. I was a journalism major, which is not necessarily a traditional major that pursues law school after graduation, but it's something that I wouldn't have changed because I felt like it gave me a lot of great tools that I still am using every single day in my classes, particularly writing skills and reading comprehension, which will help you with the LSAT too. But yeah, Olivia and I are both first-year law students, and I feel like one big thing that comes with that is this like imposter syndrome of feeling like you didn't come from the right background or you didn't take the right path, and it's like, this is insanely challenging. What am I doing here? Like, am I gonna make it? And I would just encourage you to like keep your head held high because people from all different backgrounds and expertises and walks of life are sitting in the seats next to you. So use it as inspiration instead of telling yourself that you shouldn't be where you are.
Yeah. Your why will really come into play your first year of law school for sure.
Absolutely, I personally agree a lot. And my law school class is also filled up with people with MDs and PhDs and social workers and all these people. So it was people who were biologists, who had been in clinical labs. There were a ton of different people, so you don't have to feel pigeonholed. There's a need for those backgrounds across the legal field. The next question kind of touches on this too, but why did you all end up at IU McKinney specifically for law school? Rebecca, will we start back with you?
Yeah, I'll start. To be honest, I was applying to, I had a couple of applications in the works. McKinney was the first one that I filled out because it was my top choice. I was born and raised in Indiana, and I knew I wanted to stay in the area and eventually practice in Indianapolis one day. So I knew it would be a great place to be to connect me to the Indy legal community. And once I heard back that I was accepted into McKinney and got a scholarship, I was like, okay, well, I just threw the other applications out the window. But I would encourage you to look at other law schools and, determine what's the right place for you. But for me, it was McKinney because of knowing that I wanted to be in Indianapolis, and I knew a couple people who had been to McKinney and had nothing but great things to say.
Yeah, so for me, for a lot of the attorneys that I worked with at the firm, they went to McKinney, so they kind of hyped it up and told all the great things about it. But then the amount of opportunities that we have available to us, being downtown, there's so many. I mean, Tim touched on them, being blocks away in walking distance. I know a lot of 2Ls and 3Ls will have a job at a law firm there, in downtown, and they'll just walk and work for a couple hours and then come back and have class. And so you kind of can't get that at Mauer or Notre Dame or some of the other law schools. And so that was super important to me too, is just have opportunities. Like Rebecca said, I was also born and raised here in Indiana, so I kind of knew I want to stay in Indiana and obviously probably practice in Indianapolis at some point. And then also I feel like McKinney just does a really good job about fostering community and collaboration. So I know I can talk to anyone in our section, so Rebecca and I are in the same section, and I can go to any of them and they'll be like, yeah, this is what this case actually was about, or, oh yeah, here's my notes, let's talk about this, over lunch or something. So just that community feeling was super important to me. So.
Yeah, I was really drawn to McKinney because it's an urban campus. I knew that I wanted to work. I had a very non-traditional law school experience. I applied late. I started working for a boutique immigration firm, loved the work. Changed my election from the day program to the evening program. So I too was on that hybrid schedule, going to law school with, race car drivers and other, people that worked at banks and, all over the place. It was very surreal. People who had whole lives that I was barely understanding at 22. So I loved being able to work. I loved taking my time, and I did not take a gap year. I think if I had to do it over again, maybe I should have taken a gap year, because I had a very, very robust social life that was really important to me, and I was trying to work full time, and so doing the evening program, and then I sat out a year. So I did take a gap year between my first and second year. And then I went back for what was my second year, what could have been my third, and I went full time. And then I moved to Utah, and I finished law school at BYU as a visiting student. So I was literally all over the map during my law school tenure, but it worked for me. And I ended up staying in the practice area that I'm in now. We can talk about that in a minute. But McKinney was nice. It had access to these employment opportunities that just don't exist in other places. So if you think you're going to practice in Indianapolis, then McKinney is just such an obvious choice in that respect.
Absolutely, I agree. I think for me, IU McKinney was the choice. One, location. So I was working downtown at the AG's office. It's right down the street. So when you got to go in the evenings and run to class and whatever, that just made the most sense. However, I also talked to the attorneys that I worked with. Some, had degrees from all over the place, and some were IU Bloomington. Not to say, don't go to Mauer, but I think the difference between Mauer and IU McKinney is that McKinney is just so hands-on, and you will have so many opportunities to actually start working and practicing in the law field while you're going to law school. And so I think for me, location, and then all the good things that the attorneys that I worked with hyped it up to be. And then I would also say, for me, I didn't take just a gap year. I took like 4 years. So going back into law school after being out of school for so long was something that was kind of interesting to do. I don't know if they still do it or not, but when I was going in, if you were out of school, undergrad for so long, they had like a summer school class. Do you still have it? Awesome. That was the best summer class that I'm so glad that they do it because I met some really cool people that I still talk to this day and that we're friends. And like these ladies were saying, you start making that community and building relationships with people, and you are literally surviving together. You guys are comrades in this together. For me, more partnerships, more community. I'm not so sure about day because I never did day. But yeah, I would say IU McKinney because location, the opportunities downtown, and the legal community in Indiana is so small, and majority of it is saturated in Indianapolis. So.
So I've vetted some questions out with my current students. This one got a lot of votes. This is something that a lot of students wanted to know is, knowing everything that you know now, would you go back and do something differently during undergrad if you could?
I think I would start networking now. So I know I had Professor Grove for Intro to Something, and she was like, one of our assignments was to make a LinkedIn profile and connect with people in our class. And at first I was like, oh, this isn't gonna do anything, but you use LinkedIn so much. A large part of law school and the legal community is networking and building those connections, so I'd start doing that now. The sooner the better, I think.
Yeah, I think if I could have done anything differently, I did do journalism related internships that I really enjoyed, but I think if I would have had the opportunity and more time to do an internship or an externship or some sort of opportunity in the legal profession somewhere, whether it was in an office or at the State House or the AG's office or something like that, if you have the chance to do something like that, I think that I really could have benefited from making those connections and also just learning how an environment like that works.
Needless to say, I graduated at a time that was pre-LinkedIn, pre all the things. So, networking is something that was really challenging. I absolutely could have done a better job. And so that would have been something. But aside from that, I probably worry less, right? Just worry less. I think that's probably it for me. I feel really fortunate that things sort of aligned, and I think I took advantage of opportunities when they presented themselves. I'm very grateful for my time at Ball State and my time at McKinney. I do think the other thing that's worth noting is be thoughtful about who you spend your time with, including who you choose to spend the rest of your life with. I have been enormously blessed in that regard in my personal life. And that is far more significant than what major you choose to have in your undergraduate education. And that is probably not something that's like tip top of mind, perhaps right in this very moment. But those are the things that traditionally are happening as you're leaving college and maybe transitioning to law school. But thinking about who you choose to spend the rest of your life with is enormously important, and having some alignment and being honest with yourself about those decisions. We probably just don't talk about that stuff enough, and it is hugely, hugely important. And I'm saying that from the perspective of someone who's been very fortunate and blessed in that department, but it's worth, having 2 seconds to pause about.
I think for me, I would say just enjoying school more, enjoying the moment more, and not worrying as much, because everything kind of works out like it should, and everything kind of lined up for me how it should. So I think just enjoying and being in the present moment, and enjoying Ball State a little bit more, because I didn't live on campus but for 1 year, and it was an apartment that's really not on campus, but I feel like I crammed it all in a very short amount of time. So I would say just enjoying my time at the school.
Thank you all. The next couple questions are just for Jennifer and Audrey as kind of practicing attorneys. One thing that a lot of people were curious was, did you go to law school hoping to practice the area of law that you are currently practicing now, or did you kind of make some transitions there?
Yeah, I got this job in this boutique immigration firm literally months before I started law school. So I definitely did not apply to law school or initially start law school thinking this is it. In fact, I was very skeptical of it. I knew I wanted to do something international. I knew that I wanted to help people make an impact. And in Indianapolis, if you want to do international things, we're not on a coast. The options are kind of limited. But I thought that this might be the right thing. So my practice area is on business immigration. So we represent companies bringing in foreign talent. And so I was very skeptical that this could be this easy, that I would just happen to work for a business immigration firm, and that this is just how this is going to be. So I viewed all of that with heavy suspicion. So during law school, I tried to work for other kinds of lawyers. So when I moved out to Utah for a few years, I worked for attorneys who did family law, and a woman who only represented really wealthy women who were really angry at their husbands and took them for all they were worth. That was interesting. I worked for a guy who did oil and gas law, also very specific and interesting. So I talked to environmental lawyers, and I networked a lot. I feel like living in a different state for a while gave me a lot of freedom to just sort of be bold and ask a lot of stupid questions, and so I took full advantage of that and talked to a lot of people while I was out there. In the end, business immigration has been a phenomenal practice area for me, personally, professionally, in all the ways. Happy to talk to you more about that. But no, I didn't start thinking that was it. I landed there, highly suspicious, but it's been tremendous 25, 30 years doing the same kind of practice area.
So I'm currently in a general law practice firm, so that means anything coming through the door, we pretty much do. And so when I first was, going to law school, obviously I worked at the AG's office. I worked in specifically medical licensing, so we would investigate like bad doctors and people like that. So health has always been an interest for me, and I have a lot of nurses in my family, and so I started out going to law school thinking litigation, medical, maybe malpractice, med mal, something like that. And like Tim said, you have all these certificates. Well, I did a health law certificate, so I have a focus in that health law area. Obviously, I'm not practicing health law right now, so I started out a certain way, and then as I started to being in class and talking with people, and then I left the AG's office. I went to work for the Family Social Services Administration, and within there I was doing policy, and so Medicaid policy. very specific insurance stuff. So, you know, you come from AG, litigation, now I'm over here doing Medicaid policy and healthcare stuff. And so I think that just all kind of weaved in the health realm, but now obviously I'm focused, which obviously when you look back, you kind of check, okay, this all makes sense now. Most of my history in my career has been government work, whether it was the AG's office or FSSA. So now I'm working with municipalities just on a local level, working with towns, cities, counties, and so it kind of makes a full circle some way, somehow. Doing HR, health-related things, so I'm helping their county HR department with their health insurance plans. And so you kind of start pulling in from all these different areas, but no, I did not start out law school doing what I'm doing now, and I think that's okay. Because a lot of people say, yes, I'm going to go do criminal law. That's what I want to do. They get in there, they do a clinic, they do something, and they're like, no, that's not what I want to do. And they find something in something else, whether it's tax law or, you know, IP, or just all kinds of different things. So just know that it's okay.
I agree. I did go to law school hoping to be a criminal lawyer, but specifically a prosecutor. I spent one summer internship, and I'm like, this is not the side of the courtroom for me. I belong on the other side. And but going in, I would have never, like, who are these people who represent criminal defendants? Ugh, like, was my thought. And then I ended up, that was the career I made for myself in law. So keep an open mind. My text professor said tax law is like spinach. You're all here because you feel like you must be here, but some of you will actually fall in love with this. So. And I'm sure he's right. I'm sure he sees it every year. Another thing that popped up a lot when I was vetting questions with my students was for you two, do you have any tips about not only how to kind of just survive your law school experience, but to thrive while you're there?
I think these ladies are going to have a lot more timely information about tips and tricks of law school. For me now, like all these years later, I think it's really more about appreciating it for this moment in time than it is, and that it has a place. It's really important. It builds tenacity. It builds discipline. It is nothing like actually practicing law, though. So for me, it was sort of this necessary evil of getting through and surviving so that I could actually work and practice law in the area that I wanted to practice. So I think that sort of context is maybe helpful. And maybe just thinking about what is really the purpose of law school. You are not going to learn the law when you graduate law school. You might get some black letter law, so to speak, from bar review so that you can sit for the bar exam. But law school is really more about discipline and learning to think like a lawyer, and not so much about actually learning the law. And I think that is really hard to recognize, because I think a lot of people have this misperception that at the end of taking a criminal law class, I'm going to know everything about criminal law, and I'll be able to point out all the really terrible things that happen on TV shows I watch. Maybe a little, but more it's really about learning to think like a lawyer and think deeply and critically, read faster, write better. That, to me, it was really what law school was about. So I think the tips and tricks are more about appreciating it for what it is. These ladies are probably going to have like some, nuts and bolts, like real things you're supposed to do while you're there.
So I started IU McKinney in 2016. I graduated in 2020. So I'm a few years out. I would say my time at IU McKinney, some tips or tricks. I would say time management. So trying to get yourself on a schedule and a planner, especially for me, I worked full time. I had a household, my house to take care of. I had other things, family obligations. You become a master of time management, whether you like it or not. If you want to survive law school, you just juggle all these different areas. And so I would say I had a calendar, a planner. I made sure that, I was writing all this stuff down and keeping track of it. And then I would also say, and I don't know if they do it still or not, but we had a Facebook group that they would create, and it was the year that you graduated. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so you kind of all get in this group, and it's still to this day, there's networking, there's things going on in it. Years later, and so I would say make sure you're a part of that, make sure you're networking, and just, I think the imposter syndrome is huge. Your first year is really difficult. A lot of people dropped out that I knew after the first year. They were just like, I can't do this. So there is also other resources. JLAP is something that the law school offers. So just have patience with yourself and know that you can do this if you set your mind to it. I still think back, I'm like, I'm not an attorney. Like, what? No, but you just are, right? And you've done all these things and accomplishments to get to where you're at, so.
Okay, Rebecca and Olivia, I'll throw in a couple questions to you, and then hopefully we'll have some time to take your guys' specific questions. So if you have some, start thinking about them now. What advice would you give to somebody who's either studying for the LSAT or just got their law school acceptance and is going to be starting law school in the fall? What kinds of advice would you give?
Well, congratulations if you got your acceptance letter. That's probably one of the hardest parts. But if you're studying for the LSAT, I think just figuring out your test date now or sooner than later, and then making a study plan and sticking to that study plan. So I use Khan Academy a lot when studying for the LSAT because you can put your test date in, and you can say, like, I want to study Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 2 hours each of those days, and they will create your study plan for you, and they'll also incorporate practice tests into that study plan. And so I think practice tests were probably the best thing that I personally could do because I get nervous when taking exams. So having those, conditioned practice exams really helped me when it came to the LSAT. So Khan Academy would be huge when doing LSAT prep. And then also Amazon and YouTube have a lot of affordable, helpful resources to use if you're worried about budget and studying on a budget. So definitely would do those for LSAT tests.
Yeah, that's all really good advice. When I first started studying for the LSAT, I bought a bunch of different self-guided books. I tried a lot of different online resources, including Khan Academy, and none of them felt like a perfect fit for me. So I decided to take an LSAT prep class through Testmasters, which is one of the ones that was on the board when Tim was talking about resources, and that was perfect for me. I had a professor, I had classmates, and it was very guided. I had things to check off a list every day, and that's what worked for me. And it did have access to a lot of practice tests as well, which was huge. But I think I would suggest trying different methods of studying and find out what works for you. For some people, that is going to be getting a book and studying on your own, and for others, like myself, it might be in a classroom setting. That was 2 or 3 years worth of birthday money, I think, to pay for that class. But it was a very good investment that I would make 100 times over again, because if it can help you do well on the LSAT, it can get you invaluable scholarship money, get you into the school that you want to get into. So yeah, just try not to let it overwhelm you, would be a big piece of advice, I think. Kind of get an LSAT brain when you're studying for it, but just try to keep it all in perspective. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think just planning ahead is the best thing that you can do. Even just your weeks. If you know you have a busy day on Tuesday, maybe work a couple of extra hours on Monday just to kind of make up for that lost time on Tuesday. Just planning ahead is huge, even in law school.
Yeah, absolutely. This is another question that got a lot of interest from current students. They wanted to know, how do you balance law school with everything else in your life? So that's the question. How are you making it work?
To be blunt, it was really difficult at first. The first semester is challenging just in that there's really no way you can prepare yourself. So it is easy for it to overwhelm you, but I would say try to keep in mind these things that you should be doing for yourself, like hanging out with friends, maybe friends that aren't law school friends, just because it is nice to talk about something other than your law school classes. You know, do fun things, go to concerts, go walk in the park, like do something that is not law school related, because it is really important. Like for me, a specific example I'm thinking of, I've always loved going to the gym. My first semester, I like completely neglected it, and I could tell that it really brought my mood down. This semester I've been going much more frequently, and I just feel better. It's time for myself, time that I'm not studying. So try to prioritize those things, but do recognize when you're bogged down in those moments and you feel like all you have time for is school, that you're not alone in that feeling. It is a challenge, but just try to persevere.
Yeah, law school bubble is real. Like, you'll just be surrounded by law school students all the time. So like, if you're not, you know, making like lunch and dinner plans with people not in law school, like it is easy to get bogged down. But honestly, I use Do Not Disturb on my phone all the time. And just like being open and communicating with like family members and friends, saying like, hey, I have a super busy day today. I probably won't respond to you for a couple hours until tonight. Like, don't get mad at me. It's just, this is my schedule. And so just having that communication and being upfront with them to begin with, I think is huge, and will help you guys with like your peace of mind and like not feeling like pressured to respond to them right away if you're telling them, you know, hey, heads up, I'm busy. Something that I've been doing the past couple, like this semester, last semester, is I send my class schedule to like my mom and my grandma and say, I'm in class during this time, don't text me, don't call me, like I won't respond. So that's something that's also been super helpful with managing.
Well, thank you all so much. We have a little bit of time left. Do we have any questions that you all are curious about that we haven't touched on yet? Is there anything you'd like to know or ask? Yes.
So you talked a little bit about like work-school balance, or like your balance. How difficult is it to like balance work as well with it? Because I imagine you have to keep jobs as well.
So I am currently not working. Definitely your first semester of law school, it's hard to adjust to that. So I think you can only technically work 20 hours your first year of law school. So like, it's not recommended. So, but obviously they know some people do have to work. But I think just it goes back to like time management and planning ahead. Like if you know you have a couple of shifts coming up this week, then you know maybe spending your weekend at home doing your readings and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know that they strongly encourage day students, so the students who are full-time trying to complete the program in 3 years, not to have jobs just because of the rigorous course load. I personally do have a part-time job. Maybe don't tell people from McKinney I said that, because most people don't. But I work about 10 to 15 hours a week as a barista. I love it. Sort of as we were talking about work-life balance, for me that's a life part of the balance, because I really enjoy it. It's some time away from thinking about school, plus I'm making the money that I need to be making to support myself as I'm going through school. So I will say it's not impossible, but as far as like working full-time, anything more than 20 hours a week would be near impossible, I would say, just because the workload is a lot more than probably what you're used to here at Ball State.
I think like also just like working on breaks. So like we just had spring break. I went home to my job that I took during my gap year, and they let me pick up some shifts there to like save up some money and put it back. And so like taking advantage of those breaks if you do have to work, is huge.
Other questions?
I'm surprised none of you have mentioned the NCAA being in Indianapolis, college and pro sports, things like that. Certainly there are students that are pursuing that.
Yeah, we have an externship with them that you can do your 2L and 3L years. So I know a lot of my friends are hoping to get into that position, and it's just one of the multiple opportunities that we have as McKinney students.
Yeah. They do have a sports and entertainment law society as well. Yeah. I don't think it's a certificate, right? No, but I know a lot of people are involved with the Sports and Entertainment Law Society, and they do a lot of events. I know they went to Lucas Oil last semester and got like a tour. So that's definitely, an area of interest for a lot of students.
Yeah, the Pacers.
Yeah.
Yes.
How was like getting into like working in a law firm different, like the first time you applied to like a law firm? Or like owning your own practice?
So I guess I've had a variety of work experiences, different kinds of law firms. So I worked for this boutique firm. I was a partner at Ice Miller for a long time, 20 years. I dabbled with some other law firms when I was in law school, and then I opened my own practice about 2 years ago. I'm trying to remember, like, the first time I applied for a legal position was probably that boutique firm that I worked for before law school. And it was made significantly easier for me because it was a referral from an internship I had done when I was at Ball State. So I interned in DC for a U.S. Senator, Richard Lugar, and a woman that I worked with in DC connected me with this attorney that was looking for some help. I will say, what kind of help he was actually looking for ended up being very different than what I ended up doing. So I think that's part of when you're looking for opportunities in the legal field before law school, during law school, being really open-minded about what that might be. So I think technically I probably got hired initially as a receptionist. I made an impression that allowed me to stop doing that and to do other things. But he wasn't looking for a paralegal. He wasn't looking for a law clerk. He was looking for a receptionist to talk to people when they came to the front door. And so that's what I did until I didn't have to do that anymore. And I got to do other things. So I think being really open-minded about what that looks like, and having practiced in a lot of different environments, really large law firms, and really small law firms. Large law firms are great in a lot of different ways, but they have very structured hiring programs. Small firms, they don't know what they need all the time. And so getting to know lawyers who are practicing and networking and maintaining those relationships before law school, during law school, you just don't know where those things are going to lead, right? And so just putting yourself out there and maintaining those conversations, which is so much easier with LinkedIn now than ever before. So I have needs in my law firm, and then I don't have needs, and then I have needs again. And sometimes it's really just about who's putting themselves out there and happening to reach out to me at a moment in time when I happen to have the need that I have. And so some of it's rather circumstantial and coincidental, but I don't know about you if you don't make yourself known to me, right? So I think just networking.
Yeah, I would say something I didn't expect about going to law school, practicing for a time, is don't be afraid of getting rejected. It's always worth putting yourself out there, and rejection is just part of becoming a young professional. And so if you're not willing to put yourself out there, the legal field can be really difficult to navigate. There really is a lot. There's an importance of socialization and networking and collaborating that doesn't exist in undergrad the same way.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions or ask for help or ask for advice.
Yeah.
Okay. We have time for one more question, or?
Yep.
We have time for one last question. Any takers? Yes.
Did I catch you say that you were, or once were, a criminal defense?
Yes, I was.
How do you compartmentalize that? If you don't mind me asking.
As in, how do I represent the quote-unquote bad guy?
Yeah.
Well, I never saw them as the quote-unquote bad guy. To me, they were people who made a mistake and needed and were entitled to constitutional representation. If you're someone who finds the Constitution interesting or fascinating, criminal defense work is a really great way to use it, because every time a case comes through, you're evaluating it for 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment, and before it wraps up, you're evaluating it for 8th Amendment issues. And so the Constitution was the reason I went to law school in the first place, and I was lucky enough to get a job that let me use it every single day. Any last question for our panelists? I'm here all the time, so you can always find me, and my office is right upstairs. So do we have one last question for our panelists? Well, then can you all join me in giving them a round of applause for taking time?
Thank you. You all are wonderful. Please accept this gift
Thank you.
from College of
Thank you so
Sciences
much.
and Humanities.
Thank you.
Andrea, Olivia, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Come August, when you get back here, this is going to be the new Student Success Center for the College of Sciences and Humanities. It's going to be a cool place to hang out and get help with whatever you need help with. And if you're not a legal studies major, you can still talk to these professors. They're still wanting to help you figure out law school and next steps. So thanks for being here. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.